Hello, my name is Hannah Green, and today I will be showing you how I would teach an online lesson over author's purpose. I would begin this lesson by introducing our topic of the day, which is author's purpose, and we will be discussing how the author's purpose of a text can be to explain, answer, or describe. The student objective for this lesson is students will be able to identify and explain the author's main purpose of writing a text using keywords and text evidence. The third grade reading text we will be focusing on is 3.7c, use text evidence to support an appropriate response, and 3.10a, explain the author's purpose and message within a text. I would start off by asking the students the question, what is author's purpose? And then I would provide them with time to answer in the chat what they believe author's purpose is. Then we will review this poster together as an introduction to the different kinds of purposes the author has for writing a text. We will discuss how explain is when the author is telling them how to do something, and we use keywords such as first, next, then, after, finally, and last. Then we will look at answering a question, and I will remind the students that this is also like the author is providing information over a text. And we look at keywords or key details like because, why, who, what, when, and where. And then the last one is describing, and this is when the author gives details using adjectives. And we look at our five senses, which is looks, smells, taste, feels, and sounds. I would start off by showing the students how to look in the passage to find keywords and to find evidence to support their answers. For this passage, it says, what is the author explaining? I will remind students that when the author is explaining something, it's telling us how to do something. And we look for keywords such as first, then, next, finally. So I would read the passage to the students, and then I would show the students how I go through the passage to find these important keywords. For example, in this passage, we can find words like first and another. These are words that help signal that there are different steps to take. Then I would ask the students, what do you think the author is trying to explain to us? What steps are they giving us, or how are they trying to help us? And I would point their attention to the second sentence, which says there are a few things you can do if you want to get better grades. And then I would explain to them how the next steps explain to them how to get better grades. So the author's purpose for this passage would be the author's purpose of this text is to explain how to get better grades in school. Next, I would have the students practice a little bit on their own with me. So for this one, I'm going to let them do multiple choice. This time it wants to know what is the author answering. So I would give the students some time to read the text, and then I would let them type in the chat what they believe the author is explaining, what they believe the answer is. Is it A, B, C, or D? After I've given them some time, probably about 3 or 4 minutes, I would review it with them, and we would look at some details together to help us figure out what it's answering. First, we would review that when we're answering something, they're giving us information. So we're going to see what kind of information we were learning in this passage. I would point out to the students how we saw the name William Gates or Bill Gates several times in this passage. And even though it did mention Microsoft and Xbox and Seattle, this passage was mainly about Bill Gates. So the correct answer for this one should have been, who is Bill Gates? And then if we were to write that in a sentence, it would say the author's purpose is to give us information about Bill Gates. And then we would do one more together. This time I would let them work on it a little bit more independently, and they would have to type out their answer in a complete sentence. So this one wants to know, what is the author describing? So we'll remember that describing is giving details about something. This text is about okapis. So we would look and see what kind of information the text is giving. So again, the students would receive some time to read the text, and then I would give them about 4 to 5 minutes this time to investigate the text and then to tell me what the author is describing in this text. After I'd given them that time, I will review with them to see how many students got the correct answer before we move on to independent practice. We would look to see that the first sentences mentions that okapis are animals that are related to giraffes, and we would continue to see how okapis are mentioned multiple times in the text. But we still need to know, what are they describing to us about the okapis? We would go and we would look and we would see how they are talking about that there are black horizontal stripes on them, and also how they can weigh up to 700 pounds and have a height of up to 5 feet. This is telling us how they look. So the author's purpose of this text is to describe what an octopi looks like. The next step would be to practice. So I would guide the students to going to the Google Classroom assignments. So I would show them a little clip of what it looks like. So they would be accessing the Google Classroom. They would find the author's purpose lesson 31722 underneath the practice section. They are going to be told to complete the passage and questions that are assigned to them. So there will be 2 different kinds of passages for them to work on depending on which level they're at. And then afterwards, they will have an exit ticket to complete. And every student will complete the same exit ticket so I can get a good understanding for where everyone is in the lesson. So once we go into the Google Classroom, the students will be able to see that they have their poster, and there's one of 2 different assignments that they would be assigned to. For my students who are advanced, they would be working on this assignment. If they were to click right here, it would be an explanation on how to complete the assignment. It includes the poster that we had to work on, a passage, and then multiple questions for them to answer, including different colors to find their text evidence. And then for my students who are proficient and not proficient, they would be working on this passage. Again, they would be able to click here for me to be able to explain to them how to complete the passage. They will also get the poster to remind them how are the different kinds of keywords to look for. And then this would be the passage they're completing. It is very similar to the advanced one, just fewer questions, but still finding that text evidence and typing some answers in. And then after all of the students are done, they will answer this exit ticket. And this exit ticket includes what is one important thing they learned for the day, what's something they still have questions about, and what is the author's purpose of a passage. So I give them a small passage to read, and they have to use a complete sentence and text evidence to answer their question. Now, in order to do differentiation even more so, what I'm going to do is for my students who have the triangle next to their names, which are my students Matthew, Blaze, Kylie, and Adeline, those students will be pulled into a smaller mini lesson with me when we will kind of review this together and answer 1 or maybe 2 questions together. That way I can kind of help them to understand a little bit more on how they're answering it and kind of clear up any additional questions they have. After that, I will pull another small group with my students who need some reading comprehension practice, as for their IEP. So those would be Sarah, Luther, and Jaden. I would pull them again for about 5 or so minutes. I would have them probably read the passage to themselves and then follow along with me as I read it to make sure that we have the same information. And then again, answering 1 or 2 questions together, just so I can make sure that we are all on the same page. I would use the information from the exit ticket to determine who still needs some more help with author's purpose, and then assign either additional practice for them or take it to the next step and assign something that'll help them to advance on it. Thank you.